Hi, I'm Owen, the host of the Australian Finance Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by BetaShares, one of the leading providers of ETFs here in Australia. Serving thousands of financial advisors and over 1 million investors, BetaShares manages tens of billions of dollars on behalf of investors right across the country. I'm proud to partner with BetaShares on the Australian Finance Podcast, Australia's premier financial podcast, because there is great alignment in the long-term philosophy shared by both businesses. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast.
G'day, welcome to today's podcast. I'm here with Gemma Mitchell again. This week, Gemma, we're going to talk about goal setting because I know you've got a 5-step process, and I definitely think I'll learn something today because I like to set goals, but then they often don't materialize, and I'm interested to know why goals sometimes fail and sometimes don't.
I think that happens to the best of us, myself included. But yeah, there's definitely I think a bit of a formula on how to set goals, but yeah, a lot of the time they fail because they're not really our goals.
So the process I use, and you can tell me where I'm going wrong here, but it's something I picked up from a course that I did, and it's basically a 3-year thing. And you're starting with like a 3-year, I think it's described as like a flight plan. So you got 30,000 feet goals for 3 years, then you try and bring it down to 12-month targets, and then 90-day projects, and then things to do immediately. And I know from everything I've read that if you can bring stuff down to the here and now and actually start doing something immediately, then you're more likely to start in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I love that. Momentum is so important. Like you talk about property a lot. So like imagine going from, I've got zero savings at the moment and I need a 50,000 deposit. That's a very hard goal to just start working towards.
Too bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And like if you think, oh, well, I'm not going to go out for that second coffee or whatever, I'm going to save $20. $20 to 50,000 is nothing. Of course you're going to go, oh, stuff it, I'm just going to spend the 20. But if you can break it down to like much smaller milestones, that $20 saving here and there actually is a dip in the pond, whatever that saying is. That's going to help a lot.
Believable is achievable. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because I think, yes, I mean, sometimes I write 3-year goals, but they involve so many different disparate ideas that there's no way they're all going to be achieved. But I think, well, I'll just throw them in there, and something will,
something will stick.
Yeah, that's right. But, I think it's my 3-year goals are too much, I think, a bit like a vision board, but not actually specific enough for me to sort of achieve them. And then, a year on, I'm like, well, actually, I didn't do half of that stuff. So.
Yeah. I think to get really solid goals and progress towards it, you need to be really excited about the thing or see how it's going to change your life. But I probably am I say conflicting stuff around goals because being a financial advisor and always being very goal-driven, I love a clear goal, and I think it's so important to have a plan and know what you're working towards and the steps. But now, since being divorced and kind of resetting my life the last couple of years, I talk a lot about it's okay not to have a clear vision if you can't see what you're working towards, but at some point you're going to know what that is and you're going to want to already be on the journey and already be working towards it. So if you have capacity to save, invest, even though if you don't know what the goal is, you should be doing everything in your capacity to move forward. So very conflicting kind of thing. So I probably need to work on how I actually bring those two opinions to something a bit cohesive.
So I'm just trying to think of some goals in my life that did work and some where they just haven't played out. So one of the things, the fact I'm here in Australia. So I lived in Australia back in the 90s. Although I've got Australian heritage, I'm actually British born, as you can hear, British citizen. Didn't have residency or citizenship for Australia, but I decided when I was 21 or something, I'm going to move to Australia. That's my thing. I didn't probably realize at the time how common that is. At the time, I thought I wanted to do something different, whereas actually now I'm here, there's problems all over the place.
Well, the Aussies do the reverse. We all go and do the 2 years in London.
Well, that's how I came about the idea, right? Because I was a cricketer and I had loads of Aussie friends from cricket in London and Essex and so on. And they were all saying, you should come to Australia, play cricket. And I did that. And, and after a year, I was like, actually, I should just move here. And anyway, so when I set this goal, it was quite clear, I needed to get 60 points, 120 points on the skills test to come in on the skill visa. So that meant I had to do the certain exams and I had to get 3 years experience, one of the big accounting firms, and I had to pass the English comprehension test, which I just just managed to scrape through that one to get the 5 points. And I guess it was an exciting goal. It was clear the steps I had to take. And I had a photo of Bondi Beach that I put on my bathroom mirror so that every morning when I clean my teeth, I'm like, that's why I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to do these exams. Like I was sitting on the train for 2 hours into Liverpool Street. And that all came together perfectly. And I had a migration agent who just guided me through the process. So that's an example of a goal that worked. And I think the things that were good were like, it was exciting. I knew I could see the steps, even though it was a 3-year process. It was hard, but I got the expertise where I needed it, and I had the photo there, so that I had the vision, and so that I can see like a 3-year goal like that has come together nicely. But then other times I have goals where, they're just out there ideas about living in Malaysia and stuff like that, but then they just kind of fizzle and nothing really comes together because it wasn't structured, maybe not realistic. And, maybe it wasn't inspiring enough. And then, they start out as a great idea on a vision board, but then life just goes in a different way. So how does that all, if you've got your 5-step process, what am I doing well here and what am I doing wrong?
Well, what you've just described is actually what I recommend as step 1 is reflect on what have you done in the past that actually worked. So you were very clear on why it worked with your goal of moving to Australia, and you knew that every step, even though it was a long time frame, it was getting you closer to that. Whereas the other stuff, you describe them as ideas, not goals. So I think that is key. And this is where I was saying before about my conflicting thoughts on it's okay to have ideas. They don't have to be really specific goals, but you would know, so if you decided tomorrow to move to Malaysia, you would want to have been for the last few years building up cash flow, doing all of these things so that you have the choice to make that call, even if it's not like that's a very solid goal. Maybe the goal is actually not moving to Malaysia. It's I want to have this career, have this income, have this net worth, whatever, that I can do whatever I want whenever I decide. Like maybe that's actually the goal and it's not so specific.
I think you're right. I think as well, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that sometimes things are ideas. Because you say to people, what's your goal? Oh, it's to be the top podcaster in Australia. Okay, what have you done this week? Oh, well, I did this and I did that and I did something else, but nothing that actually specifically relates to that goal. So that's more of an idea or a concept than something you're taking concrete steps towards every week and every month.
And maybe it's the outcome of all the other steps that you're actually doing. And so the outcome of you building wealth and doing all of these other things that you have control over mean that you could move to Malaysia in a heartbeat if you wanted. So maybe so reflecting on what's worked before was 1. Number 2 is getting clear on your values. So maybe your value there is family, travel, freedom, flexibility. And so you can do lots of things in your daily life and have systems and habits that support that without having a really clear, in 2026, I want to move to Malaysia.
So just on your 2 steps there, there's a couple of things here that are actually quite personal. So reflecting on what's worked before, well, that might, one person might respond really well to like very regimented goals if you're a thinker or analytical type of person, but somebody else might be very visual.
So a vision board versus a spreadsheet. I was always a spreadsheet person.
Excel.
And now I've got a vision board because I kind of feel like I can't set some really concrete goals because, divorce and all these different things. So now I've got a vision board, which is like the first time ever. And I'm like, I would have never thought that I would.
I think there's a place for both. Yeah. But
absolutely.
I think it maybe depends on your personality type. And definitely when it comes to things like your values, well, that is obviously going to be very personal to the.
And it can change.
Yes.
It can absolutely change. And think like this is jumping to 5, but reflecting on your goals and allowing them to change is okay. But I think a lot of the time why goals don't work is they're not our goals. They're what we've seen other people do. It's what other people are doing around us. Like I talk about this in my book, An Invisible Checklist that I had for success. And it was the career, the house, the investment property, the kids. And while I love my life and I all those things bring me joy, I don't feel like I consciously was like, oh, this is going to be great when I get to this. I think I was just checking off things that I thought was success. And I think that happens with goals. You know, like people go, oh, well, we're saving for our first home. But does that actually align with what they want to do? Do they even want to be living in Australia? Does it make sense? Like we just kind of go on we automate our lives, I think.
I think with careers, like I know from personal experience, like as you were saying on the previous episode, I think when I was 18, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And, I ended up, like a lot of people, training as a chartered accountant because it's kind of like it's a broad sort of qualification and you could take you into certain industries that you might be more interested in. But, the further I went down that career, I'm like, it's like climbing a ladder that's against the wrong wall. It's like, I don't want to be like stuck behind a desk for the next, I know for some people, they're getting sort of the kudos and the identity. You can earn a high income, all of that stuff.
And the stability, if that's one of their values.
Yeah. And a very, you can earn a very high standard of living and so on. But, when you talked about the values there, I mean, maybe I think I was doing that on the basis of the absence of other ideas, probably a lack of confidence of starting my own business when I was younger. But also, it was almost like I was doing a mimetic thing where I'm like, that's what everyone else is doing. They're getting a degree and then going to some kind of professional career in London. So I'll just do the same. And, it's only like a few years into it. I'm like, actually, why am I doing all this stuff? It's just, and, people often ask me, what I'm thinking about becoming a chartered accountant and doing the exams. What do you think? And I would say, look, if you don't know what else, it's a brilliant foundation. You'll understand business, accounts, balance
transferable
sheet.
Skills.
Yeah. I would never discourage somebody from doing it, but also think about what ultimately you want to do. Because, if you don't want to just be sitting behind a desk auditing statements, financial statements, well, like that only gets you to here. It's not going to get you to there.
You said something great previously about the ask why 5 times. I think you can do that.
Kids do it. Like the kids won't shut up. They're why? Well, we've got to go to call them. Why? Because I'm recording a podcast. Why?
Yeah. So we should be doing that in our own lives to challenge what we're thinking because we want to make sure that it is actually aligned with us. So if we keep challenging it, and if you come out with the same, well, yes, that is still my goal. Great. But if there is anything in there, potentially that's going to pick up and challenge why you're potentially going down that track. So, so number 3 is, which again is a bit probably contradicting, but it's get specific. And you can get specific on the goal, the monetary value you need for that, break it down into steps, or you can get specific on what that looks like. And it doesn't have to be a first home. It could be that flexibility that I want to be able to have choice down the track. And my capacity right now means that for that, I could be putting X amount into a share portfolio or my super or into investment property. Like I think when I talk about get specific, it's either of your capacity and making sure that if you do have capacity to be putting towards something that you want, you are actually doing it. So having the cash flow and having a plan, whether that's $50 a pay, $500 a pay, whatever it is, but you're just getting specific on and breaking it down and going, well, how often am I doing this? How much am I putting towards it? When do I want to achieve this goal by? Like we need to have an action plan. It's all good having a goal, an idea. It's a wish until you've actually got a plan around it.
So in the business schools, they used to say set goals that are smart, specific, measurable, which you talked about, achievable. So something I guess that you can actually do, realistic and timely. So, or time bound, I guess, something that's, it's not just a thing for the future. You're actually going to do this in 1 or 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And maybe that's actually not the end goal, has a time on it, but it's in my capacity. I want to be able to save $10,000 a year or something. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be, I want $1 million by X. It could be, well, based on my capacity right now, doing everything I can, I can achieve this year, and then next year I'm going to reassess it because my earnings might be higher, my expenses might be low, or whatever. But I think having the plan, even if it's like little steps that fit into the big picture, and that should evolve with you. It's never I never see it that what is your plan that works is still working 10 years later. It's got to adapt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so open-minded and flexible. I think it's a bit self-selecting because I work largely in real estate, but one of the most common things I get with younger people is like, well, I want to buy my first home. I've only just sort of started in my career. what do I need to do? And then, it's a really common goal that people want to do, because they've got to pull together a deposit, some stamp duty, maybe some legal fees they've got to pay for. But then you can start to break that down. You can say, well, maybe like I want to buy my first unit in 18 months time or whatever it is. And then you can break it down into chunks, and you can make it as you say, specific time bound and monetary value. So I remember going through the process myself. So when we were living in Sydney, we were living in Bondi like every palm in the universe, but we wanted to buy a place in Pyrmont. And but the biggest hurdle, like we didn't have equity we could use at the time, had to save the deposit. And I mean, working in Sydney CBD, you've been there, you know exactly what it's like. Friday at 3:00, and everyone's like, right, let's crack open the beer fridge, go down the opera bar, and it's like, I just used to think this is like a physical impossibility for me to not go to the pub after a 40-hour work week or 50 hours or whatever it was. But we had the goal of wanting to do this because there was a place we wanted to buy. So in the end, we've talked before about it was easier because there were two of us, so we could say, right, we're going to do something different.
Yep. Keep each other on track and accountable. Yeah, so I can't remember which street. There's that Fitness First near the stock exchange in Sydney. And I joined up Fitness First. I'm like, instead of going to the pub on Friday for 2 hours, I'm just going to put some earphones on and go on a cross trainer or a treadmill or something. And I found if I could just get through to like 6:30 or 7 o'clock Friday, but even just that process was saving like hundreds of dollars a week, and then it has a knock-on impact to your Saturday and your Sunday. And to your health and all of these different things. Yeah. And that trade-off is, yes, you're paying $20, $30 for a gym membership, but you're saving hundreds of dollars and you're still feeling like you've achieved something, you've been out of the house. Yeah. It's just about finding the habit that you can exchange for potentially the behavior that you feel is holding you back. Yeah. So, look, this was my cross to bear, but everyone would have a different one. For some people, it might be buying a new dress or something. Like for me, it was just like, if you like boozing as much as I did, I could see, just without even doing a budget, that's where my money was going. Eating out, drinking, buying rounds for everybody at the bar, all of that. So it's like I was never, ever going to save a deposit if I carried on doing that 6 nights a week. So that, and I could see I had to make a change, but as you say, you've also got to have like a progress chart, a sense of reward for actually achieving it. And the key behaviors that have to change. And, for some people, it might be gambling. For other people, it might be retail therapy, or travel, holidays, whatever, weddings, whatever it is. But, and reassessing what you're getting from that behavior. So, for example, impulse shopping or shopping online or whatever. Maybe it's that you are getting that little boost, that little dopamine hit, but maybe you could swap it out for something else. So when I'm out shopping, and I'm not great with this, but one of the things like in a toolbox of, money coaching kind of strategies is, say I'm going to go buy something and it's, dress, for example, $50. If I don't buy that, I will transfer while I'm in the shop $50. If I convince myself that I don't need it, which doesn't always happen, but I will transfer that $50 that I was literally going to spend anyway into one of my goals accounts, whether it's my share fund, if I've got nothing else going on, maybe it's a holiday that's coming up and I go, I would much rather spend that on dinner when I'm in whatever holiday next than have this dress that I don't think I'm going to wear that I could probably. So it's just actually like asking you, maybe it's back to your 5 whys, like just asking more questions than just automatically doing it. And if you need that little hit of a reward, for me, it's, oh, well, I did actually something with that money. It's gone to one of these other goals. And that works for me, might not work for other people, but stuff like that, finding what you can replace that feeling that you're chasing. I think that's right, isn't it? Look, I talked on podcasts before about, having some problems, shall we say, with alcohol. And, for some, taking yourself out of the environment is one thing, but you got to replace it. Like if your life's revolving around going to the rugby and drinking beers all night, like you can't just stop and sit at home. You've got to find something that inspires you. Exactly. So I find, travel and then later on doing other things. But
you can't just, you've got to have a reward system as well. It can't just be like living like a monk, because that ain't going to work for anybody, especially in the modern society when you can buy almost anything online now.
Yeah, it's got to be sustainable. And this is another thing why I see people's goals not work, is because they've set them too hard and they're unrealistic. It's like when people set a budget. And so, for example, they might say, every pay I'm going to put $200 into a savings account, but then they're constantly dipping into it, $20, $50, because they've set the bar too high. They would be better to go, I'm going to put $50 or $100 into savings. And then at the end of the week or the month or what the pay cycle, if I've got anything left as a reward, I'm going to put it into that savings account, rather than dipping into it, because what that's telling you is you're constantly enforcing that you're bad with money, you can't save, But if you actually overshoot the mark and were able to put more in, you're rewarding yourself and saying, hey, look how good I was with money. But I see so often we set the bar too high with what we're trying to achieve. It's unrealistic. And then we just go, oh, well, I failed, and we don't keep going with it.
Yeah, so I guess the final two steps in your 5-step process are having the action plan broken down into milestones.
Milestones that make sense for you. So like I was giving the example of $20, like $20 to 50,000 is nothing. But if I was saving in, I guess like amounts of $500 or $1,000, $20 to me is a lot towards those milestones. So I'm more likely to go, I can see the value of saving that money. So you need to find what works for you, but breaking down into milestones and not looking at the big goal, looking at just what you can control every day that moves the needle to milestones.
Control the controllables. Yeah, that's good advice. And then I guess you, as you say, you review and adjust is the 5th step. So I suppose like I guess like a cruise ship on a voyage, you don't just set the course and leave it. You kind of you're adjusting as you go along.
Because life changes and our goals might no longer be our goals, and that's where you'll stop working towards them, is they don't excite you anymore. You're just going through the motions. So you need to check your progress, but also make sure that's still a realistic goal, and make sure you're still working towards the right target. Like imagine if you're saving for your first home, for example, and you don't check in for 10 years, the amount that you're trying to save might be totally different.
And you've lost interest anyway, right? Yeah.
You want to make sure that these are still goals. And if you're working towards something and that shifts, like this example of, say you're saving for a first home and you're working towards a deposit, and then you decide you don't want to be in property, you've still got a lump sum there that you can go invest or put to a business or whatever. Like it's not as if that has just been a waste of time you working towards that goal.
Yeah, you can adjust course as you go along. You've just reminded me, actually, it was the London Marathon I saw on the TV last night, because one of my old cricket buddies, Alistair Cook, was running, and it sort of flashed up on my thing. But so that was one of the things we did when we were saving a deposit to buy in Darling Harbour, was we were going to run the Sydney Marathon. Now, Heather's not a runner, and I'm a lazy git at the best of the times, but it was like, well, it's something we can do at the same time as saving money. It doesn't cost anything to go running in Centennial Park. And we did it. Like I don't ever need to do a marathon again. I have no interest. My knees are still under reconstruction. But yeah, I guess that was one thing again where you could break it down into like a milestone, because you can't just turn up on the day when it's 28 degrees and run a whole marathon. But you can break it down into, well, I can start with a 2-mile run around Centennial, and then build up as you go towards a half marathon, and then eventually do it. And I suppose the thing, there's two things like I look back on. One is like whenever someone talks about running, I can say, well, I've done Sydney Marathon. I may be the most useless runner ever, but that's one thing, nobody can ever take that away. I never thought I'd be able to do it. Heather didn't either. And so that's one thing. There's an achievement, and also, we've still got the unit, right? So we've we kind of figured, well, we'll never be able to afford to buy in Darling Harbour when we're older, because we were both at sort of our peak sort of earning years in our career, and it's like, well, even if there was a lot of pain involved in not going, socializing for a year and all the rest of it, but like there's a couple of things there that are tangible, and we can come away and say, well, we actually did that,
yeah. And now, like, the pain was at the time, but it's not like you sit here now and go, oh, I miss that Friday night that everybody went out.
I still do a little bit. Like, like if someone had a really good night and you missed out. But the pain was real, man. Like, I think, it's hard to explain, but if you've worked like the types of hours we used to do at Deloitte, like And then you get to a Friday and I'm just going to stay in, like go to the gym. Like, that is a tough hurdle.
Yeah.
It's a difficult habit to break.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
It's a
reward
culture
thing.
too. Yeah.
It's a serotonin hit and all the rest of it. But yes, you're right. It's like your whole life, that stage in life is revolving around work because you're spending all your time in the office with work people. And then, on Monday, everyone's talking about what they did over the weekend. And it's like, I went for a run. You're a nobody. So, so I guess, so those are the 5 steps. Reflect on where you've been and what's worked. Get clear on your values. Be specific. An action plan. Review and adjust course as you go along. So have you got any sort of little hacks for us or little housekeeping tips that you would throw in there? Because I guess it's easy to get shunted off course in today's consumerist society.
Yeah, my biggest one would be not setting the bar too high. And like I gave the example another time about, it's like, well, if we set a budget and we're tracking our spending and all of that, it's not sustainable. If that's not sustainable for you, don't bother. It's like when I go to the gym every day for 7 days and then not for months. Like just actually do something, build processes, systems, like framework that's going to keep you on track, that's actually sustainable. But like I think with anything, whether it's cash flow, building wealth, like your goals, you're having a budget, a spending plan, knowing where your money is going is the most important thing to be able to keep you on track. So find whatever works for you, like separate money out so you can actually see it clearly going to the goals. You need to have the systems and the framework that actually support you when the motivation goes. And that's going to be how you manage your cash flow, how you separate your bank accounts. Like that system is so, so important because that keeps you on track every single day when, you're busy with work, with kids, whatever else is. But those systems will keep you on track.
You've really actually inspired me today, Gemma, because I'm always saying to my clients, right, here's your 3-year goals worksheets, go away and do those. And then I do them periodically, but I actually want to go back and do it with a genuine sense of excitement. And say, right, in 3 years' time, these are the things that I want to finish the reno, started a new sort of Airbnb business, moved to the hinterland. Who knows? I might even end up in Malaysia. No, you've correctly pointed out that's an idea, not a real goal. But yeah, I actually want to go away with a sense of excitement and to say, I've got a good base to work off here, but in 3 years, I want to have done this, this, and this. And then I can bring it down to, I can use your 5-step process to bring it down to something that I will actually stick at rather than, because you can obviously tell I'm the sort of person who jumps onto Google and I have ideas about moving to New Zealand or, trekking across Peru and all these things. And it's like a lot of these things aren't really actual goals. They're just sort of things I've thought about that'd be nice to have, but actually I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, but to be able to do any of those, it's going to mean that you need to manage cash flow well, have wealth, have flexibility in your job, so you could still be doing things. So it sounds like it's very clear on what your values are, that you want that freedom, flexibility, so you can still be doing stuff every single day to work towards that.
Enneagram type 7, yes. Freedom, adventures, experiences. Yeah, I think it like I wish I'd read all that stuff when I was younger because like I would work with people who are the thinker, analytical personality type, and I'd be like, how can they do that? How can they sit there for like hours in meetings? But yeah, there's some people are very process driven. Some people are very sort of ideas people, and I learned some of this stuff at business school about the different types of a group and the storming and the norming, performing and stuff. But actually just understanding that some people are fundamentally so different. Some people are very achievement focused, goals focused. Some people are very status driven, but other people are just not that. And I think is having that framework. It was a guy, Steve Moriarty, who put me onto it. Like read the Enneagram assessments, and then you can place people in these buckets, and you go, oh right, now I understand why Gemma's talking about this. Because you can. It doesn't mean everyone's the same, and there's obviously more than 9 different types of person, but it just helps you to understand how people aren't driven all by the same values and the same things.
Yeah, and in your life, you don't have to be all one way. You can pick out little things out of different personalities that, you want to aspire to manage your money like that. Like it doesn't have to be this is black and white, you are this person or you're not. Just pick the things that you like out of different ways that people do things, how they goal set, and then just find what works for you. Like we should have a hybrid of kind of personality mashups in the way that we do things. And I think, just reviewing and evolving and think you said it before, we go down one track and we kind of like stick with it because, oh, well, we're on this path, but we can change.
Yeah, the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're, there's a saying, I can't remember who said it, but something about like if you're on a bus, it's cheaper. You would be better to get off than pay the whole return fee of going. I don't know what that saying is, but like it's like, well, just sometimes like pivot, adjust, admit that this doesn't align anymore, and get on the right bus.
Yeah, it's like the Concorde fallacy, wasn't it? They spent so many years and so many billions invested. It's like we have to finish this bloody thing now. But like you see that so many times with government projects, they go so far down the rabbit hole, there's no going back. But in your life, you can change course.
Yeah, and if you're reviewing and picking up, it's going to be so much easier to just change 1 degree than keep going at this rate and then just be like, oh, what have I done? I should have gone down a different route,
So we're going to have to do another episode sometime. I'm going to come back with my 3-year goals and my action plan that's going to be specific, and you can tell me where I've gone wrong and what I'm definitely not going to achieve.
And in 3 years when you're in Malaysia, we'll do online.
That's right. Yeah, from Koh Samui. I think, that's a very useful, I like mental models, and just having a mental model like that actually is very useful. So hopefully you've got something out of it as well today, everyone who's listening. So thank you, Gemma.
This has been great. I'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.